Imagine you, about to marry the person of your dreams. Everything seems perfect, and the big day is finally arriving. The family is united, friends are excited, and love seems to be in the air. But what if, in this scenario of apparent happiness, you discovered a dark truth? Anthony, our protagonist, found himself in exactly this anguishing situation. He had planned his wedding with Ashley, a woman he met and fell deeply in love with her. However, a simple forgetfulness of Ashley's, leaving her cell phone behind, reveals a shocking message that changes everything. Suddenly, what should have been the beginning of a life together becomes a stage for surprising revelations and a revenge plot that no one could have foreseen. Follow this story where love, betrayal, and twists intertwine dramatically. Anthony, a member of a distinguished wealthy family, found himself in the exciting countdown to his wedding with Ashley, a charming woman he had met through a modern dating site. The romance, which blossomed over 2 years, had all the elements of an idyllic love story, worthy of the most beautiful fairy tales. With enthusiasm, they planned every detail. The chosen location for the ceremony was simply spectacular, a true vision of dreams, and the guest list was already composed, including closest friends to rarely seen relatives. However, as the anticipation grew, an unexpected event arose, shaking the foundations of this promising future. This unusual incident triggered a chain of doubts and suspicions that hung in the air. Anthony, visibly disturbed, confided in one of his best friends. "I don't know what to do. Everything was going so well, and now this? How can we move forward with so many uncertainties?" This whirlwind of emotions and sudden uncertainty about what was to come marked a moment of deep reflection for the couple, who now needed to face these new challenges together, seeking answers before they could proceed with their dreams of a perfect wedding. On that hectic morning, while Ashley rushed to personally check the final touches on the floral decoration and wedding buffet menu, a carelessness caused her to forget her cell phone at home. Anthony, taking advantage of a rare day off from work to collaborate on the preparations, was at home organizing some documents when he heard Ashley's cell phone vibrate on the kitchen table. Curious, he walked over there, expecting it to be just a reminder from the florist or a confirmation from the buffet. However, upon reading the blinking message on the screen, his heart stopped for an instant. The text said, "Friend, she's marrying Anthony just to get his money, but she's secretly with Isaac." The message, clearly intended for Ashley, came from one of her friends. Anthony felt as if the ground opened beneath his feet. The message was a shock, a betrayal not only of trust, but of the love he believed to be mutual and sincere. He sat down, stunned, trying to process the words. "How can this be happening?" he thought, feeling a mixture of sadness and anger. With the cell phone still in his hands, he pondered how to confront Ashley with this devastating revelation and what it would mean for their future. Doubt and mistrust began to overshadow the dreams of the wedding that was so close and at the same time now seemed so distant to him. The discovery of this message was like a devastating blow to Anthony. Isaac, his younger half-brother, was invited to the wedding, but had always been a somewhat distant figure in Anthony's life. Raised away from the riches that Anthony's mother had brought to the family, Isaac had a superficial relationship with him, marked more by cordiality than by a true brotherly connection. The suggestion that Ashley might not only be marrying for money, but was also secretly in a relationship with Isaac, shook Anthony deeply. Feeling betrayed by the person he loved most, and by his own brother, the world seemed to spin around him. How is this possible? He questioned himself, his mind invaded by a mixture of disbelief and pain. The revelation transformed what should have been one of the happiest moments of his life into a personal tragedy. Struggling to maintain his composure, Anthony found himself faced with a torturous dilemma: to confront Ashley and Isaac immediately, or to seek more evidence before exposing his suspicions. Each thought was a torment, and the future of the wedding, which once seemed so promising, was now covered by a fog of doubt and mistrust. Determined to seek clarity before making any drastic decisions, Anthony decided to act with caution. He knew that unfounded or hasty accusations could irreparably destroy relationships. Thus, he chose to seek confirmation before confronting Ashley or Isaac. With this thought in mind, Anthony contacted a renowned private detective known for his discretion and effectiveness in marital cases. After a detailed meeting, where he explained the situation and his concerns without revealing too much to those involved, Anthony hired the detective to initiate a discreet investigation. The plan was for the detective to observe Ashley and Isaac in the days leading up to the wedding and during the ceremony, alert to any suspicious interaction or evidence of a secret relationship. The detective equipped himself with high-tech surveillance tools, preparing to capture conversations and behaviors that might indicate a clandestine relationship. Anthony, for his part, tried to maintain normality in his preparations and interactions, although each smile and each word exchanged were now tinged with doubt and suspicion. This period of surveillance would be crucial, determining the course of his future actions and the fate of his relationship with Ashley. With a heavy heart, but a focused mind, Anthony anxiously awaited the results of the investigation, hoping his suspicions were unfounded, but prepared to face the truth, whatever it might be. As the days progressed toward what should have been the pinnacle of his marital bliss, Anthony found himself in a constant state of emotional tension. Outwardly, he maintained the composure of an anxious groom for the final wedding preparations, but internally, a true storm of feelings consumed him. The love he felt for Ashley was now intertwined with corrosive doubts and the fear of a devastating betrayal. In dealing with vendors, choosing flowers, and reviewing location arrangements, each decision seemed weighed down with extra weight. His heart ached every time Ashley smiled at him or gently touched his hand. Gestures that were once sources of joy, now moments of internal questioning. Could all this be a sham? He asked himself, observing every nuance of Ashley's interaction, trying to detect any sign of falsity. The anxiety for news from the detective was almost unbearable. Anthony incessantly checked his phone, waiting for a call or message that could bring some clarity. With each new update that didn't arrive, the uncertainty grew, making each day more challenging than the last. In this state of constant alert, Anthony strove not to let his suspicions show. He knew that any change in his behavior could raise suspicions in Ashley, potentially further complicating the situation. Thus, he wore a mask of normality, participating in the preparations and celebrating each small success on the way to the altar. While inside, he grappled with his turbulent emotions and the fear of having his heart broken. The big day had arrived, radiant and promising under a crystal blue sky. It was as if nature itself aligned to celebrate Anthony and Ashley's union, adorning the day with perfection. However, while the outside world celebrated, Anthony's heart was tumultuous with a storm of conflicting feelings. That morning, as he prepared for the most significant event of his life, Anthony made one last check with the private detective. He confirmed that he was already on his way, equipped and ready to discreetly observe all events, particularly the interactions between Ashley and Isaac. Hanging up the phone, a wave of apprehension invaded Anthony, mingling with the tenuous hope that all of this was just a misunderstanding, a tasteless joke that had spiraled out of control. Donning the carefully selected outfit for the wedding, each of Anthony's movements was automatically executed, while his mind spun around the possibilities of what the day might reveal. He looked at himself in the mirror, trying to see the reflection of a happy and anxious groom, but all he could see was the image of a man divided between love and mistrust. As he walked to the ceremony venue, the warm greetings from guests seemed distant, muffled by his internal tension. The detective, a meticulous professional with decades of experience in marital investigations, arrived at the wedding venue with the discretion of a true chameleon. Dressed as one of the event service providers, he went unnoticed among the other workers, blending naturally into the festive atmosphere. With skill and speed, he began installing small security cameras in strategically chosen locations around the ceremony and reception areas. These devices, almost invisible to the untrained eye, were positioned in a way to capture all possible angles, focusing especially on areas where Ashley and Isaac might interact. The importance of his mission was clear: to document any behavior that could indicate a secret relationship or confirm Anthony's suspicions. The detective acted with silent efficiency, ensuring there were no blind spots in the key areas. He knew the slightest failure in surveillance could cost the opportunity to capture conclusive evidence. With everything in place, he took up a discreet position where he could monitor the live footage, ready to record any significant evidence. The situation began to take an increasingly worrisome turn. The detective, now installed in a discreet and secure location, monitored the footage transmitted by the security cameras with heightened attention. It was then that he captured a potentially compromising moment. Ashley meeting with Isaac in a way that left no doubt about the intimacy between them. The way they embraced and the intimacy of the encounter were atypical for mere acquaintances, or in this case, future in-laws. Without wasting time, Ashley and Isaac head together to the bride's room. This location had been reserved for Ashley to make her final preparations and enjoy a moment of relaxation before the ceremony, a place that was supposedly meant to be a private sanctuary. The detective, understanding the gravity of what those images could suggest, continued his monitoring with even more intense surveillance. Every gesture and every glance between Ashley and Isaac were analyzed in search of any evidence that could clarify the nature of their relationship. The tension of the moment was palpable, even through the cold screens of the monitors. Inside the elegantly decorated bride's room, meant to offer a tranquil and luxurious retreat for Ashley in her final moments before becoming a wife, the atmosphere was one of intimacy that exceeded expected boundaries. Isaac's presence, away from the curious eyes of guests and hidden from Anthony, added a layer of mystery and potential scandal to the day. The detective, behind his monitoring screens, didn't miss a single detail of the interaction between Ashley and Isaac. He captured every shared laugh, every casual touch that seemed natural and comfortable, revealing a familiarity that was hard to ignore. Ashley appeared completely uninhibited in Isaac's presence, laughing at his jokes and interacting with him in a way that would normally be reserved for someone with whom one has a deep connection. These moments, recorded by the hidden cameras, were crucial. They not only provided visual evidence of the relationship between Ashley and Isaac, but also highlighted the emotional complexity of this encounter. For the detective, it was evident that there was more than just a friendship or a sibling relationship there. As the crucial wedding moments unfolded, Anthony tried to maintain his composure in front of the guests who continued to arrive, each one bringing smiles and congratulations. He responded with the expected courtesy and charisma of a groom. But inside, he was on an emotional roller coaster, his heart divided between the love he still felt for Ashley and the anguish provoked by suspicions of betrayal. Each hug, each handshake with friends and family, while meaningful, seemed to occur in a kind of haze. The reality of his personal situation made it difficult for him to be fully present. With every glance towards the area where Ashley was preparing, his stomach tightened with anxiety about what the detective might be discovering at that very moment. Internally, Anthony prepared himself for all possible scenarios. If the suspicions were confirmed, he would have to make decisions that could drastically alter the course of his life. On the other hand, a revelation that it was all just a misunderstanding could offer immense relief. although trust would already be shaken. The next few hours would undoubtedly be some of the most important of his life. Deep down, Anthony hoped this was all a mistake, a misinterpretation of Ashley's intentions. He clung to that hope, anxiously awaiting the detective's conclusions, which one way or another would determine the fate of their relationship. Meanwhile, he continued to navigate the day's formalities, each gesture an effort to maintain the facade of a perfectly happy day. In the bride's room, away from the curious and festive gazes of the guests, the moment captured by the hidden camera was definitive and incontestable. Ashley and Isaac, surrendered to each other in a passionate kiss, seemed completely oblivious to the context of the wedding unfolding outside. This act, captured in the midst of the wedding ceremony, was the confirmation of Anthony's worst suspicions. The detective, although shocked by the blatancy and clarity of the act, felt a certain professional satisfaction at having managed to capture exactly the kind of evidence that justified his presence at the event. He knew this would be a crucial moment, and the responsibility to bring this truth to light was great. Immediately, he prepared to inform Anthony. The delicacy of the situation demanded tact, for the emotional and personal implications were profound. The detective organized the captured images, ensuring everything was clearly and incontestably documented before making the call that would change everything. Anthony, meanwhile, was still among the guests, maintaining a facade of happiness and normality, completely oblivious to the fact that the course of his day and his life was about to change radically. The shock of the news he was about to receive would certainly shake him to his core, challenging his emotions and future decisions. The revelation promised not only to interrupt an ongoing wedding, but also to irreversibly alter many relationships and lives involved. Anthony answered the phone, his heart beating with an anticipation that mixed fear and the hope that his concerns were unfounded. The detective's grave and careful tone, however, quickly dispelled any hope of a misunderstanding. "Anthony, I need you to be prepared for what I'm about to show you. It's definitive and quite clear," the detective said seriously. The words sounded like an ominous prelude, and Anthony felt a chill run down his spine. I'm prepared. What did you find?" Anthony replied, his voice trembling with the tension of the moment. The detective then explained that he had captured clear images of Ashley and Isaac in a moment of intimacy that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. He emphasized the clarity of the evidence and the need for Anthony to see the images personally to fully understand the situation. Watching the videos on his cell phone, Anthony saw the harsh reality unfold before his eyes. The images of Ashley and Isaac, surrendered to a moment of passion, confirmed his worst suspicions in a brutal and undeniable way. Each frame of the video served as a direct blow to his heart, shattering not only the image of the woman he thought he loved, but also the trust he had placed in her and the relationship he believed to be true. The initial shock gave way to a wave of conflicting emotions. Anger, sadness, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal competed within him. The reality of what these images meant for his future, for the plans they had made together, all of this began to settle in his mind as he struggled to maintain his composure. With a heavy heart and still trying to fully process the revelation, Anthony knew he needed to make a decision. While the guests celebrated joyfully out of reach of these grim revelations, he was on the verge of making one of the most difficult decisions of his life. To confront Ashley and Isaac, cancel the wedding at the last moment, or somehow find the strength to deal with this betrayal in a more private manner. With tears mixed with determination in his eyes, Anthony put his phone away. He needed a moment to breathe, to gather his strength before facing Ashley and Isaac. The weight of the decision he was about to make seemed overwhelming, but he knew he could not turn back. The truth was clear, and action was necessary, no matter how painful. Anthony felt as if the weight of the entire universe was compressed against his chest. Struggling to breathe, with tears flowing freely down his face, he faced the lacerating reality that the day that was supposed to be the happiest of his life had turned into a complete disaster. The pain was overwhelming, each heartbeat a sharp reminder of the betrayal he had just witnessed. In the solitude of a secluded corner, away from curious eyes and festivities, he pondered his next actions. The idea of continuing with the ceremony seemed impossible, a painful charade too much to bear. His heart only told Anthony to cancel the wedding. Amidst the chaos of his emotions, Anthony made the difficult decision to confront the situation. He needed to act, not just for himself, but out of respect for the guests who were already at the venue and the investments made in the event. With a heavy heart, he began to consider his options, knowing that any choice he made now would change his life forever. Anthony and the detective, now accomplices in a surprisingly bold plan, began to discuss in detail how they could use the situation to their advantage. Anthony decided that instead of canceling the wedding abruptly and dramatically, he would do something no one expected. He would go ahead with the ceremony as if nothing had happened, using his acting skills to conceal the pain and betrayal that seethed within. The plan was complex and would require great emotional strength. During the ceremony, Anthony would maintain his composure, greet guests with a smile, and conduct the event with all the apparent joy of a groom on his wedding day. He knew this would not only preserve the dignity of the event in the eyes of the guests, but would also give him control over how and when the truth about the situation would be revealed. Internally, however, Anthony was preparing the ground for a controlled and strategic revelation of Ashley's betrayal, planning a way to confront her and Isaac after the ceremony in a more private setting. He envisioned a scenario where he could express his discontent and disillusionment without causing a public scandal that could affect not only the three directly involved, but also the innocent guests. Furthermore, he considered the legal and financial repercussions of a marriage followed by an immediate divorce. He discussed with the detective about collecting additional evidence during the event, which could be used in subsequent legal proceedings. This practical aspect was essential to ensure that not only the truth would come out, but that it would be done in a way that protected his long-term interests. Thus, with a carefully crafted plan and in a heart that, although wounded, beat with a new determination, Anthony was ready to face the day. He would head to the altar not as a victim, but as the lead actor in a play where the final scene was yet to be written. As the ceremony began, Anthony was impeccable in his suit, each gesture and expression carefully calculated to avoid raising suspicion. Ashley, radiant in her wedding dress, walked towards him, unaware that Anthony knew everything. The exchange of glances between them was a theater of two faces. She, oblivious to the impending storm. He, a calm before the devastating revelation. Anthony's heart raced, not with the typical nervousness of a groom, but with the tension of maintaining his performance. Every time the image of the betraying kiss came to his mind, he used the pain as fuel to strengthen his acting, ensuring that no one, not even Ashley or Isaac, could suspect what was to come. The ceremony proceeded with the exchange of vows, a moment that, under normal circumstances, would be one of pure joy and love. For Anthony, however, each word carried a different weight, laden with irony and double meaning. He looked at Ashley with a smile, but inwardly, every phrase he uttered was one more step towards the climax of his elaborate revenge. As the guests celebrated love and unity, the detective continued in the background, monitoring every move, ready to act according to the established plan. Anthony knew that the denouement of this theatrical piece, unfolding on one of the most important days of his life, was near, and he was prepared to reveal the true face of what was happening, giving new meaning to the phrase, "Until the truth do us part." The officiant then asked Anthony, "Anthony, do you take Ashley to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, until death do you part. The silence that followed the officiant's question was palpable. All eyes were on Anthony, whose hesitation seemed an eternity. Ashley, sensing Anthony's prolonged hesitation, tried to dispel the tension with a forced laugh, a feeble attempt to bring levity to a moment that for her was beginning to seem terribly wrong. "Anthony, did you hear me?" she asked, her smile barely concealing her nervousness. Anthony, whose face had until then maintained a mask of composure, finally broke the silence, looking directly into Ashley's eyes with a calm that contrasted with the storm inside him. He uttered the decisive words that would mark the end of their relationship. "I will not marry you even if they paid me, you cheater." The reaction from the assembly was immediate. A surprised and shocked murmur swept through the venue as guests exchanged incredulous looks. Ashley, caught off guard by Anthony's cutting words, turned pale as the reality of what was happening finally sank in it. Isaac, equally stunned, discreetly retreated, his presence now a visible reminder of the betrayal that had destroyed not only a relationship, but an entire planned future. With the truth finally revealed in such a dramatic and public moment, Anthony felt a mixture of relief and devastation. Although his action was a direct response to the pain and betrayal he had suffered, it was also the closing of a chapter in his life that he never imagined would end this way. Ashley's response, tinged with disbelief and shock, only amplified the tension that already dominated the atmosphere. As guests murmured among themselves, perplexed by the unexpected turn of events in what should have been a joyful matrimonial occasion, Anthony took advantage of the focus of attention to clarify his position and reveal the reasons behind his drastic decision. "What do you mean, Anthony? Have you gone mad?" Ashley, visibly shaken and confused, tried to make sense of the situation, seeking some explanation in Anthony's gaze that could make sense. Anthony, standing with a firm calm that contrasted with the emotional chaos around him, looked at the crowd of gathered family and friends and spoke. "So, people, I know you were expecting a beautiful wedding, but really you're here to witness how rotten someone can be for money." His voice, though controlled, carried a weight of bitterness and disappointment. Anthony's declaration caused a shocked silence to fall over the assembly. The revelation of the images of the betraying kiss was like a bomb exploding in the midst of the ceremony. With a click of the remote control he held firmly, Anthony projected the incriminating images onto an immense LED panel that had been strategically installed for the event. The clarity and proximity of the kiss between Ashley and Isaac was displayed in detail for all to see. The reaction from the guests was immediate and visceral. Cries of shock and exclamations of disbelief cut through the air as words of repudiation spread through the space. Some guests covered their mouths with their hands, others shook their heads in disapproval, and some looked at Ashley and Isaac with judgmental and condemning gazes. Ashley and Isaac, now the epicenter of a storm of indignation, were visibly shaken under the spotlights of public shame and scrutiny. Ashley tried to speak, perhaps to explain herself, but the words seemed to get lost in her throat as she faced the negative reaction and betrayed expressions of the guests, many of whom were close friends and family. Anthony, though shaken by the need to publicly expose the betrayal in this way, felt justified in his action. He believed it was necessary for all those involved to see the naked truth, to understand the reason for his painful decision to end the relationship in this manner. The atmosphere, once filled with celebration and joy, became charged with tension and disgust. The wedding was effectively canceled, and the repercussions of this event would be felt by everyone for a long time. For Anthony, it was a moment of painful but necessary catharsis, a step to close a traumatic chapter of his life and begin to heal from a deep emotional wound. The situation at the wedding ceremony reached a point of total emotional chaos. Humiliated by the public revelation of her betrayal and panicked under the condemning gazes of everyone present, Ashley tried to flee the embarrassing situation. However, in her desperation, she tripped and fell, resulting in a torn and soiled dress, an image that only added to her humiliation. As she stood up, trying to regain some semblance of dignity, the guests' gazes continued to judge her intensely, each one a silent accusation of her actions. Anthony, still consumed by the need to do justice to his suffering, showed no compassion in that critical moment. "This is what happens to those who are dirty," he said, with a coldness that reflected the depth of his emotional wound. These words were the last straw for Ashley, who, standing up completely, shot Anthony a look that mixed anger and despair. "I hate you!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the venue before she ran out of the ceremony, leaving behind a trail of shock and tumultuous emotions. The ceremony, now abandoned by the bride, left everyone in a state of confusion and dismay. Some guests began to leave. Others gathered to discuss the shocking events, all deeply affected by the drama that unfolded before their eyes. What should have been a celebration of love and unity ended up being an exhibition of betrayal, revenge, and profound emotional pain. And what would you do in Anthony's place? Comment on what you would do. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to keep following more stories like this. See you in a new story.